When Jake Lawson opened his eyes, all he could see was the glow of the morning sun breaking through the canyon mist, and the face of the most breathtaking woman he had ever seen. Her dark eyes burned like polished obsidian, and strands of raven black hair fell around her cheeks as she hovered over him. For a second, Jake thought he was dreaming, until he realized the weight pressing on his chest was real. The woman was straddling him, silent and still, her gaze sharp and unreadable. Then she spoke in a low, melodic voice, every word wrapped in the rhythm of her Apache tongue before she switched to broken English. "You moved," she whispered. "You should not have moved." Jake's heart thudded. The last thing he remembered was the ambush, the wagon overturned, the sound of gunfire, the cries for help. He had seen her then, running from two outlaws who had cornered her near the cliffs. He'd jumped in without thinking, fought them off, and taken a bullet through the arm for it. After that, nothing but blackness. Now, here he was, lying in some cave, wrapped in animal hides, and with this mysterious woman staring down at him like a guardian, or a warning. "You're safe," she said softly, pressing her palm to his chest to keep him still. "But the wound is not." Jake glanced down. His arm was bandaged neatly with clean, hand-woven cloth, herbs tucked beneath the folds. Whoever she was, she knew her medicine. "You saved me," he murmured. Her eyes flicked toward the cave's entrance, where the wind whistled like a haunting spirit. "No," she said quietly. "You saved me, and that is the problem." Jake frowned, trying to sit up, but she pushed him back with surprising strength. "Easy," he said, managing a half-smile. "You could have just said thank you." The woman's expression didn't change. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, studying him like he was something dangerous, or sacred. "Among my people," she said, "when a man saves a woman's life, her spirit becomes tied to his. The earth itself remembers it." She paused, her fingers brushing the mark on his shoulder where blood had dried. "Now, you belong to me." The words hit him like a strike of lightning. Jake tried to laugh, thinking she was teasing, but the deadly calm in her voice told him she wasn't joking. "Belong," he echoed. "Look, ma'am, I think you've got it backward. I'm just a drifter who did what any decent man would." But she only leaned closer, her hair brushing his face, her breath warm against his skin. "Decent men die for strangers," she said softly. "You didn't die. That means the Great Spirit has chosen you." The cave seemed to shrink around them. Jake could hear the steady drip of water from the rocks above, the rustle of the wind outside. He didn't know what to make of her, this woman who spoke of spirits and fate as though they were living things. "What's your name?" he asked finally. She hesitated. "Taya," she said, "daughter of the Wind clan." Her voice carried the weight of pride and loneliness. "And you, white man?" "Jake," he said quietly. "Jake Lawson." Taya repeated his name slowly, as if testing its strength. "Jake," she said. "Then listen, Jake Lawson. You cannot leave until the bond is broken. If you go before it is done, the curse will follow you, and the earth will take what it is owed." Jake looked into her eyes and saw something there he couldn't explain: sorrow, fire, and a strange kind of fear. He realized then that whatever she was talking about wasn't just superstition. Something had happened out there in the canyon, something he didn't yet understand. He tried to sit up again, this time gently, and Taya didn't stop him. Instead, she reached for a pouch at her side and sprinkled something into the small fire burning in the middle of the cave. Blue smoke curled upward, filling the air with the scent of sage and pine. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Calling the spirits," she said. "They must decide what becomes of you." Jake exhaled slowly. "And what if they decide wrong?" Taya's lips curved into a faint, haunting smile. "Then you will never wake up again." The smoke thickened, swirling around them in shapes Jake couldn't quite recognize, faces, perhaps, or shadows of animals that once roamed the plains. His mind began to drift, as if the cave had become a world between worlds. He heard voices whispering in a language older than the wind, felt his heartbeat sinking with the crackle of the fire. Taya sat across from him, her eyes closed, chanting softly. Her voice was low and rhythmic, weaving through the smoke like a song. It was both terrifying and beautiful. When she finally opened her eyes, they glowed faintly in the dim light. "They have spoken," she said, her tone heavy. "You carry the mark of the Protector." Jake frowned. "Protector?" "Yes," she said. "You have taken my fate into your hands. The spirits say I cannot walk alone now. Where you go, I must go." He let out a slow breath. "That sounds like a mighty complicated way of saying I can't leave." "You cannot," she said simply. Until the earth releases you. Jake rubbed his temples, trying to make sense of it all. Look, I don't know about spirits or curses. I just know there are still outlaws out there looking for you. If you stay with me, they might find you again. Then let them come, Taya said, fire flaring in her eyes. They took my father's life, burned our land. The Great Spirit sent you to help me end it. Jake stared at her, realizing the depth of her conviction. She wasn't some lost girl in need of saving. She was a warrior, one carrying grief and vengeance like a torch. The storm outside began to rage. Wind howled through the canyon, and the fire flickered violently. Taya rose to her feet, towering above him, her silhouette outlined by the blue flames. Tonight, she said, the spirits will test your strength. If you pass, we fight together. If you fail, she looked down at him, her voice softening. You'll never see the sun again. Jake stood slowly, ignoring the pain in his arm. Then I guess I don't have much of a choice, do I? No, she said with a faint smile. You don't. You are mine now, Jake Lawson. And that means the world will no longer fight fair. The storm outside the canyon roared like a living beast, hurling wind and dust against the rocks, but inside the cave, everything was frozen in a strange, heavy stillness. The smoke from Taya's fire coiled upward in blue ribbons, whispering against the stone ceiling. Jake could barely feel his wounded arm anymore. The herbs she'd used numbed the pain but made his thoughts drift like tumbleweeds. The Apache woman moved around him silently, tending to the fire, her movements so graceful and fluid that she seemed to belong to the storm itself. Every time she glanced at him, he felt that same quiet pull, something between gratitude and fear, like being seen too deeply by someone who knew his soul before he did. You still think I'm mad, Taya said suddenly without turning. Her voice carried softly through the cave, mixing with the crackling fire. I think, Jake said slowly, that you're different. And maybe that's not madness. Taya smiled faintly, a shadow passing across her face. Different, she repeated. That's what the soldiers said before they burned my village. Different, like we weren't people, only stories to be erased. She crouched near him, her eyes reflecting the light. You fight for people you don't know, Jake Lawson. Why? He hesitated. There was no easy answer. Because someone has to, he said at last. Because I've done enough wrong in my life that I can't stand by and watch more of it. Taya studied him for a long time, her gaze piercing through the smoke. Then maybe the spirits sent you for a reason, she murmured. They do not bring lost men to my fire by mistake. She took a small clay bowl from beside the fire and held it out to him. Drink this. Jake frowned. What is it? Truth, she said simply. It smelled like sage and smoke and rain. He hesitated, then drank. The liquid burned his throat, and suddenly, the cave seemed to ripple around him. The walls shimmered, and he felt himself falling backward into visions, strange, vivid, ancient. He saw her people dancing under a blood-red sky, heard drums echoing across the plains, and then saw the fire, the soldiers, the smoke rising like ghosts. He saw a young girl, Taya, running through the flames, clutching a broken amulet in her hand. And then he saw himself, standing in the middle of it all, though he didn't belong to that time. His own voice whispered in the dream, you were always meant to return. When he opened his eyes again, sweat covered his skin. Taya was watching him closely, her face inches from his. You saw it, she said quietly. Didn't you? Jake tried to speak, but his throat was dry. What was that? He finally managed. Your past, she said. And mine. The spirits showed you the bond between us. When you saved me, the old wound opened again. You carry part of my tribe's pain now. And until that pain is healed, you cannot leave me. He stared at her, unsure whether to be angry, afraid, or humbled. So that's what this is, he said, voice rough. A curse? No, Taya replied softly. A promise. She reached out, brushing her fingertips lightly over his temple, her touch warm, grounding him in the present. When dawn comes, you will feel what my people felt. Their hunger, their loss, their strength. If your spirit survives, we will be bound as one. Her eyes gleamed like onyx. And if it breaks, you'll join them in the wind. Lightning flashed across the canyon mouth, flooding the cave in white light. Jake's heartbeat thundered in his ears. Every instinct told him to run, to escape this madness. But something deeper, a pull older than fear, held him still. You talk like you already know how this ends, he said. I do not, she whispered. But I know what the spirits want. They want the blood of the man who burned my father's camp. They want peace for the land that still remembers his footsteps. And they sent you, Jake Lawson, to finish what began before you were born. He shook his head. You think I can just take up a war that isn't mine? It is yours now, Taya said. You took my place in death when you pulled me from it. You wear the mark of the protector, whether you want it or not. She moved closer until he could feel her heartbeat against his chest. You carry my spirit, that is why I was on top of you when you woke. Her voice trembled slightly, breaking through her calm. I had to keep your soul from leaving your body. I had to breathe life back into you. You were gone for hours. The storm came, and I thought you would never return. Jake stared at her, speechless. The weight of her confession sank deep into him, heavier than the canyon walls. You saved me, he said quietly. No, she answered, her voice barely above a whisper. I gave you back what you gave me. That is the way of the bond. The fire dimmed to embers, and silence filled the space between them. Outside, the storm began to ease, the wind softening into a distant hum. Jake felt something shift inside him, not fear this time, but understanding. This woman, this place, this strange force tying their lives together, it wasn't chance. It was fate, older than either of them could name. And as he lay back, staring at the flickering shadows, he knew one thing for certain: whatever came next, he wouldn't walk away from her. Not now, not ever.